Korean cinema is booming. The most subtitle-phobic person you know, who hasn't seen a foreign language film outside of a classroom in his entire life, probably gave Parasite a go. American animation houses are lifting from Korean and K-pop aesthetics. Korean guys are making movies in America with American movie stars, and people are seeing them because of the Korean name that's on the poster. How did Korean cinema get so massive? To figure this out, you have to go back to 2000, when the dot-com bubble popped. And South Korea was badly hit by this. Exchange rates went sideways, and distributors and exhibitors suddenly had to pay a lot more to bring American and European films to Korean audiences. Korea had a vibrant national cinema before this, with many classics like The Housemaid and Aimless Bullet, and a burgeoning scene of young filmmakers making good work throughout the 90s. These were the first generation to come up after Korea's military dictatorship. And when film imports became less economical, we saw a greater portion of their indigenous films populating Korean cinemas, both art houses and multiplexes. This gave the new generation a runway to make more and more ambitious films, develop an audience, gain international acclaim, and go bigger and bigger and bigger. But one filmmaker took this runway and decided to make his films smaller and smaller. And in the process, he created a wholly new style that breaks all the rules and rewires the form, giving us a radical reinterpretation of the potential of cinema. This is Sang-soo. Here's a shot from a Hong film, and here's another shot from the same film, and here's a shot from a different one, and a different one, and here's another one from the first film, and here's another one. His style is remarkably consistent and his look is very distinct. Sparse, imprecise framing, a digital sheen, no artificial lighting, no polish. It's rough. It's not ugly, but it's also not ugly. He'll have these long dialogue scenes, 10, 15 minutes of just two people talking in a bar or a cafe, and then he'll throw in an aggressive zoom. It knocks you off balance. You're not supposed to do that. Camera movements are supposed to be motivated. They're supposed to feel like there's a reason for changing the shot. Is there? It's not immediately clear. Is Hong just bored of the last setup? Is there some cultural tell that Western audiences can't catch? Take the motivation out of it. Camera moves aren't supposed to look like this. They're not supposed to be shoddy, calling attention to themselves. They're supposed to feel slick and cool, like how David Fincher does them. Hong operates with a kind of fearlessness. He's doing things his way, and he doesn't give a shit if you agree with it. His films carry the same kind of storyline. They're about film directors, or film professors, or actors, or writers, or film students. And these directors or professors or actors or writers or students stumble around the urban landscape, mostly Seoul, sometimes not, and go about their day. They run into friends. They go for coffee. They go for drinks. They go for more drinks. They get outrageously drunk and say something they shouldn't have. And they go home. And this pattern repeats and repeats across his movies. It feels a bit like Ozu, the Japanese master. Ozu was focused on family dynamics in post-war Japan, arranged marriages, and aging parents in a country losing touch with its traditional way of life, struggling towards modernity. You could watch an Ozu film, and then watch another Ozu film, and it's the same film. You could write a plot synopsis with the names left out and it would be near identical. But there's something in his approach, the nuances of his characters, the level of detail in their behaviours that makes each film feel distinct. And the further he gets from World War II, the more Japan opens up and westernizes, the traditions that he once played as tragedy, the social conditions that condemn girls to loveless marriages, are played again as farce, mocking the absurdity of the idea as demographics shift, women enter the workforce, and those family struggles have less of a psychic chokehold on the country. And when you look at the totality of Ozu's work, those commonalities become distinctions. Each near identical brushstroke builds to form a grander tableau. So what's the point of Hong's repetitions? What do you get out of them? What do they tell us about Korean society or global society in the 21st century? I don't know, I'm not really going to focus on that. I just think his stuff is really cool, and the more you watch of it, there's a strange kind of affection you get for the same old tropes, the same old setups, and as he goes through his career, you can see them develop. You see patterns take root, you see things get stripped back, you see him box himself into a set of limitations, and then narrow and narrow that box until you get to a really experimental, borderline incoherent place. When you look at Hong's early films, they're not like this. They look like real movies. They have somewhat of a budget, they have set pieces, they have scenes, there's different setups. It's not Spielberg, but there's definitely more moving parts. And then during the 2000s, he boils it down more and more and more. Longer dialogue scenes, fewer locations, fewer setups. And in 2008, he makes Night and Day on a digital camera, and the look jumps forth fully formed. After that, we get a film a year from Hong, sometimes two, and he never breaks from this style. From 2010 to 2018 is the golden period of Hong to me. He's on a real hot streak, and he uses his technical and logistical limitations to really go gonzo with narrative. In The Day He Arrives, we see a guy arrive in Seoul after some time away. He meets up with friends for drinks, and then he does it again, and we don't know if we're watching different days, another day of arrival, or just a long, interminable cycle of the same old behaviours. In Hill of Freedom, a character writes a load of letters to a woman who only finds them after they've piled up for weeks and weeks. She drops and scatters the letters before she can read them, and the rest of the film is told out of order. In Yourself and Yours, a woman lies about being an identical twin, and we see her live a double life. Or does she have a twin? Are these the same people or different people? When their behaviour shifts at random points, we're left wondering what to believe. Then once COVID happens, he gets a little weird with it. He makes In Water, an entire film shot deliberately out of focus. He uses cheaper and cheaper cameras, chasing the digital imperfection until it overwhelms you. He deliberately shoots scenes at night with no lighting, like this one in By the Stream, where you can only see a fuzzy, grainy wall of noise, and you can't tell which character is talking or which characters are even still in the scene. There's something fun and exciting about this. You could look at it and say it's obviously amateur, it's shoddy, but the characters are so interesting, the performances are so real, that you can't disregard anything. And when you look past the imperfections, the need we all have for everything to look right, you start to ask yourself why he's doing what he's doing. What does it mean to have these same scenes repeat without clear distinction or development? What is he telling you about these characters, the world they inhabit, when the drama seems so static? The first Hong Sang-soo movie I ever watched was Right Now, Wrong Then. I was in film school, and this movie hit me like a ton of bricks. Mainly because it felt a little like a student film, and showed you what you could do with the financial and structural limitations you have working at that level. When you're in film school, you make a film and you shoot it where? A cafe your friend works at, a hallway on campus. What do you shoot? People talking some more. And it always turns out shit. It always feels like you did it wrong. But here's a guy from Korea who's walked every major film festival in the world, making great art with the exact same toolbox. Hong's films go back to the film school setting again and again because he was in fact a lecturer when he made a lot of his best work in the 2010s. There are film students who show up in his films as characters, and I always ask myself if these are his real students, if he put them in the film as an exercise. What if the whole thing is an exercise? What if that's why he shoots these films the way he does, using the equipment he uses? When you get the 10-year-old camera from the film school equipment locker, it feels like a death sentence. I can't make something good on this, it's not going to look right. Well, look at this. I went to the Berlinale with something that looks like it was shot on a phone. Beat that. Hong's limitations also come out of what might be the most insane production method I've ever heard of. I kinda don't know whether or not to believe this because it's so absurd, and it's kinda remarkable that his actors manage to give the performances they do under these conditions, but this is how they all say he works. In pre-production, Hong doesn't write a script. He goes to locations, places he knows or is familiar with, and lines up a date where he can film there. He locks in the actors, and he knows he'll have these 3 people on this date in this location, and that's it. Then on the morning of filming, he gets up early, sits at his desk, and writes the scene that they'll be shooting that day. It's seat-of-the-pants filmmaking, truly making it up as you go along, and it's hard to knock it when it works like this. There's a kind of playfulness to this exploratory approach that you wouldn't get if you were working the way that Bong Joon-ho works, or the way that Park Chan-wook works, or the way that any director works. When you have investors and you have to make sure something will draw an audience and make a return on investment, you can't work on the seat of your pants. Hong makes a film for about 10 grand. That's nothing in relative terms, and with that he has absolute freedom to do exactly what he wants. And through that process, Hong does this thing that I put at the start of this video. He rewires cinema. What does that mean? He takes something that seems boring, that seems shoddy, that seems wrong, and makes you approach it earnestly and meet it on its own terms. He makes you think differently. He makes you approach it on a different level. He rewires the cinema, and he rewires the audience. Let me give you an example. After I discovered Right Now, Wrong Then, I went down a rabbit hole of Hong movies. but I kept coming back to that first one I'd seen, how it made me feel, how it felt like nothing else I'd ever seen. I showed this film to a friend of mine who had no interest in world cinema or art movies or anything like that. I was going out on a limb. Everything was set up for him to hate it. Right Now Wrong Then is about a filmmaker who's travelled to this town to introduce a screening of his film. He gets to the town a day early and kills some time at a temple. He meets a girl, a painter, and they get to know each other. They go for a coffee, he visits her studio, they go for a drink, they keep drinking, they go to her friend's house for a party, they get more drunk, and the next day he introduces the film. We're halfway through now. Then we meet a filmmaker who's travelled to this small town to introduce a screening of his film. He gets to the town a day early, so he kills some time at a temple, he meets this girl, a painter. Yeah, the rest of the movie is the same scenes happening again, except things are slightly different. It's a ballsy move, and one that really tests your patience. And I thought it was going to test my friend's patience. And then something crazy happened. We got to this scene where the two leads meet for the first time for the second time, and he does the Leo DiCaprio point to the screen. And I'm like, what's the story? And he's like, she stood up first. The last time this happened, he stood up first. And that says it all, really. Sang-soo rewired my mate's brain so that he had that reaction to that image. A perfectly normal, kind of ugly, very imperfect image gave him a visceral reaction like you would have to a plot twist in a David Fincher movie. And he didn't know why, but he had to find out. So he watched the rest of the film on tenterhooks, desperately trying to figure out the reason these things were slightly different this time around. And it's not the clearest thing in the world. I think the two sides of this story are about lying and being honest, but it's not a moralizing, simple look at those ideas. In the first half, the director lies about being married, only for it to blow up in his face at the friend's party because he's kept this secret and he's blown it with this woman. She hates the way that he was duplicitous towards her, and she will never forgive him. In the second half, he volunteers this information, and while she's not thrilled about it, it's not a deal breaker. Then later at the friend's house, the director keeps being honest. He keeps drinking, he keeps talking, he gets shit-faced. He does exactly what he wants with no tact, losing all his inhibitions. He gets too hot, and he starts to strip down. He horrifies the guests and has to leave the party. With Right Now Wrong Then, Hong is exploring honesty as a nuanced, multifaceted thing. You can't be fully honest all the time, and sometimes the most human thing to do is to lie a little bit, or by omission, for the sake of someone's feelings or for a greater good. Sitting on lies for too long can bring trouble, but so can being fully forward with everything you think and feel. The film is a critique of an insecure kind of guy, a Korean guy or just a guy in general, who does himself in by being manipulative and two-faced, and another kind of guy who does himself in by not being able to read a room. The way these characters unravel across long dialogue scenes is really powerful. You're soaking in these moments as they pass in real time, and you go through all the emotions that the characters are going through. It's a kind of magic, and it's just a fun hang. So if you want to feel something different from a movie, check out something from Sang-soo. Let yourself doubt the film, judge the film, come around to the film, and find yourself, well after it's over, unable to stop thinking about it. Through a singular process unlike any other, Sang-soo has produced a filmography that truly stands alone, and that's why he's probably my favourite filmmaker working today. That feels like a good note to end on, but I just wanted to touch on one other aspect of Hong's filmmaking that's both the only thing most people know about him and something that's really quite misunderstood: his relationship with actress and model Kim Min-hee. If you have a passing knowledge of Korean cinema, you might know Kim. She was in The Handmaiden as this opulent Japanese heiress. Kim is a female lead in Right Now Wrong Then, a film about an adulterous film director who cheats on his wife with a young artist. Hong cheated on his wife with Kim Min-hee.
After months of speculation, in June 2016, a report by Dispatch revealed that the rumors were true and Min-hee and Sang-soo were indeed having an affair.
This was a huge story in Korea. It was explosive. Hong tried to get a divorce from his wife, but she refused. Hong's students were up in arms and tried to get him sacked from his teaching job. Korean media went out for blood for Kim Min-hee. She was dropped by her agency and was sued by brands that she had deals with, who now saw her as a volatile commodity. In the last decade, Hong and Kim have stayed together. They've attended film festivals together. She's continued to act in many of his films. She's even credited in production roles in some of his 2020s work. And I think Kim's role in these films shouldn't be underplayed. If you look at Hong's filmography, he tells stories that are critical of Korean masculinity, self-critical, you could say. He puts down his male characters, points out their flaws and their patterns of irresponsible behavior. And the women in these films are also real, they're also well sketched, but the messaging and the point is chiefly concerned with how men mistreat these women or fail to understand them. As Kim takes more of an active role in Hong's work and life, he starts to make some films that really center women. On the Beach at Night Alone is about an actress exiled after a fling with a famous filmmaker, and the film chronicles her headspace, her sense of being abandoned by everyone she knows, including this man. When they meet at the end, the film isn't about how bad he fucked up. It's about how he made her feel and how she has had to recover on her own. It centers the female perspective. In 2024's By the Stream, Kim plays a lecturer, a female lecturer. That's brand new for Hong. When a student is kicked out of her class for serially dating all his female classmates without telling them, he's really bitter and resentful. Kim sits down with him in this beautiful scene at a campus bench and is struck by how he has no remorse whatsoever for what he's done wrong. This scene is a critique of male short-sightedness like Hong has always done, but here we see Kim's character finally articulate why the man is full of shit and tell him exactly. When you've watched as many Hong films as I have, this does feel revelatory. This is what's gone largely unsaid throughout his whole filmography, and here it comes out. The narrative around Kim Min-hee goes like this. Beautiful model, becomes an actress, has some early success, and then throws her career in the toilet to have a fling with an irrelevant art house director. She'll never get another role like The Handmaiden again, and isn't that a shame? But I think people are looking at it completely wrong by following the sort of Korean tabloid narrative. Her role in partnership with Hong is more impactful than any role she would have gotten from Park or Bong or any of the major Korean filmmakers. My hope personally is that she recognizes the role she now plays, highlighting the struggles that women go through in Korean society, is actually the best possible outcome of this whole mess. So please, by all means, check out some of Hong Sang-soo's films, see what you think, let me know if they're worth anything to you. But anything after 2017, keep in mind, they're just as much Kim Min-hee's films too.